A super election period has kicked off in North Macedonia, where both presidential and parliamentary votes will be held back-to-back in 2 weeks, starting on April 24th. As the incumbent president, Stevo Pendarovski, is leading the current polls for the presidential elections, his Social Democratic Party seems to fall behind the main opposition center-right coalition in the parliamentary vote. The election campaign has become divisive in the country, and the next government will have to approve unpopular constitutional changes as part of its EU bid. Adam Amunu explains.
North Macedonia is bracing for an election season which could shape the future of one of the region's most ethnically diverse nations. It looks like the presidential election could be the closest contested one in years, and people will get to choose from a wide spectrum of candidates. The current president, Stevo Pendarovski, is among several other candidates, and he is endorsed by the ruling Social Democrats. Bujar Osmani, the current foreign minister, is a candidate of the ruling Albanian party of the Democratic Union for Integration, and the biggest opposition party, VMRO-DPMNE, is placing its bet on Gordana Senilovska-Dakova. The parliamentary elections taking place simultaneously are adding up the stake in the presidential contest. Polls are suggesting that voters are unhappy with unfulfilled promises by the ruling party, which didn't deal with crime, corruption, inflation and unemployment, and that they are leaning towards the opposition Conservatives, which is pushing a pro-nationalist agenda and could derail the country's hopes of joining the EU. The next parliament will have the difficult task of reviewing the constitution to relaunch the country's European Union path. Among other required membership criteria, the country must change its constitution to recognise an ethnic Bulgarian minority. That's a highly contentious issue because of the overlapping histories and cultures of North Macedonia and neighbouring Bulgaria. In 2023, the parliament failed to secure a two-thirds majority to change the constitution. Since January, the government has been run by Talat Xhaveri, a caretaker prime minister, despite the opposition voting against his appointment. He is North Macedonia's first ethnic Albanian prime minister. Identity politics is again likely to shape one of the most important agendas for the new government and parliament: North Macedonia's accession application to the European Union. The country this year celebrated its 4th anniversary as a NATO member, which is an important factor for the deeply divided country's stability, as well as the stability of the region.
Станавме членка на НАТО алијансата и со тоа ставивме тапија дефинитивно за секој што можда мисли дека може да се игра играчки со нашиот територијален интегритет и суверенитет.
But there are still many challenges ahead, and it will be ordinary citizens who will be shaping the trajectory of North Macedonia this spring. Adam Amunu, Across the Balkans.
Let's cross now to Graz, Austria. Zdravko Veljanov is there. He's a visiting fellow at the Center for Southeast European Studies to explain us more about the upcoming elections in North Macedonia. Zdravko, how would you assess the overall political climate in North Macedonia leading up to the elections?
Hello, thank you for having me. The elections are dominated by two blocks of issues. One is issues that are related to the foreign affairs in the country, and these are mostly related to the stalled European integrations and the further emerging unresolved bilateral issues with countries. And this time it is the bilateral issue with Bulgaria. But nevertheless, the most important issue continues to remain the European integration with the country. And that's how the major political parties and candidates are trying to portray themselves. Domestically, on the other hand, and this is more goes in the direction of the parliamentary elections, we have another set of issues that are important for the voters. The first one relates to, and this is the most important one, relates to the widespread corruption within the country. We've seen in the past few years, and especially in the past year, several international organizations continuously stressing the need for the country to continue fight and deal with corruption issues. Even individual countries such as the United States of America has put several prominent political entities on their blacklist. On the other, in a similar fashion, we see countries struggling with economic growth. So we see lagging behind further compared to its counterparts from the Western Balkans.
Is the corruption one of the reasons that the opposition, center-right, is polling better than the ruling coalition?
It is a major component of what could be the reason for it. So we have a coalition and government that came on the promise of resolving a major corruption scandals that took place until 2015. But in the last few years, and especially since the last parliamentary elections in 2020, we don't see much changes with corruption. Instead, what continues to be further stressed is that it goes even deeper now within the major institutions and within the society. And what's even more worrying is that there is no clear pathway of how a country can get out of such a situation.
Right. Let's look. Yes, go ahead, please.
And the major opposition parties are trying to take care of that issue, to try to portray it and at least show some kind of promising, show some kind of solutions that could be tested within the country. But it remains to see whether those are feasible or whether they can help the country in any way.
Right. So let's look at the presidential candidates. One of them even on the US blacklist for the corruption. Very interesting list. Voters can choose from a variety of different platforms. Can the outcome of presidential elections impact the parliamentary vote that comes after that?
Indeed, what we see in these presidential elections is a greater offer of candidates, let's put it that way, compared to the last presidential elections. So we see candidates that are positioned on the entire spectrum, whether it's the socioeconomic dimension or whether it's the traditionalist integrationist dimension that we frequently talk about in recent years. So we have one group of candidates that are firmly for European integration, for resolving any kind of bilateral issues that come up within the country. And it is claimed that this is the only way forward. But on the other hand, we have a couple of candidates, presidential candidates that do not agree with unequivocal European integration. So not under any conditions that a country should proceed with the European integration. And here the biggest problem is the unresolved issue now with Bulgaria about the constitutional changes. Even candidates go even further back of disputing the PRESPA agreement that has been signed a few years earlier.
Right. Let's talk exactly. So the main issue seems to be even whoever wins and manages to form the coalition after the parliamentary elections will have to find a way to approve in the parliament those unpopular constitutional changes regarding bilateral relations with Bulgaria. How are the parties polling when it comes to that?
Yes, so the current government coalition were not able to pass these these reforms, these changes, constitutional changes in the government. And from what we see in the surveys and the polls, it's really hard for them to get the required number of MPs to even within these parliamentary elections to get to the number that they need for constitutional changes. And it depends on the position of the major opposition party at the moment. And from what we see and read from what comes from them is that it's really unclear on where their stance is. We see that they are open to making constitutional changes, but not under any condition. So the major condition for the major opposition party is renegotiating the agreement. But what we're missing from the picture is what can be renegotiated with the agreement with Bulgaria. So which parts of the agreement can be negotiated, and what is acceptable them in order to support this kind of constitutional changes. And lastly, the smaller parties that are firmly against the constitutional changes, it depends on how many votes they would get in the parliamentary elections. So the first round of the presidential elections is actually very crucial in this regard of how their presidential candidates fare in them and what can be the message and the campaign that they can push in the second round when it comes to the parliamentary elections.
Zdravko Veljanov, this has not been easy to explain to international audience, but I think you've managed. Thank you for being our guest on Across the Balkans.
Thank you again for inviting me.
Thanks for watching this episode of Across the Balkans. See you next time from me and the whole team here in Istanbul. Bye-bye for now.